The evaluations are complete, and here is my initial 53-man roster prediction for your 2025 Washington Commanders.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Commanders. I'm David Harrison, your guy on the ground covering the Washington Commanders for WUSA 9. And also right here with you 5 days a week. You can also find me writing about the Commanders on Sports Illustrated's CommanderGameDay.com. And you can follow me on X at DHarrison82. I want to thank you for making Locked On Commanders your first listen or your first view. And a special thank you goes out to all of the everydayers, those of you who come through for every single episode. If anybody out there has not already, please make sure you subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you're listening to today's episode. If it's your first time coming through, welcome to the show. Hopefully you like what you hear and you come back again real soon. But coming up on today's episode, we are going to do our 53-man roster prediction, including some practice squad targets and each unit's strengths and weaknesses. All of that coming up on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the number one reason for championship optimism in Washington these days is an offense led by quarterback Jayden Daniels and armed with some elite talent that is necessary, of course, to compete with anybody in the National Football League. Yes, including the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the offense, even last year, the offense was capable of competing with the Eagles. Didn't always do so the best way. Looking at you, 4 turnovers in the NFC Championship game. But I digress. I think they got better this year. So here is our 25-man offensive 53-man roster. I've got 25 offensive players, 25 defensive players, 3 specialists equals 53. I didn't do the 25-25 split on purpose. To be honest with you, it just kind of came out that way once we did it. So quarterback position, I do have this team keeping 3. It's what they did all last year. I think that's just going to kind of be the mode that they go through throughout the season. It gives them the opportunity to protect Jayden Daniels if they need to and have 2 quarterbacks loaded up, ready to go that have been practicing, that have been in the film and in studies and all that stuff. So Jayden Daniels clearly is going to be your starter. Marcus Mariota is your number 2. And the battle for quarterback number 3 goes to the veteran Josh Johnson, who is back with Washington for a second stint in the NFL, his 40th team in his 30th year of playing in the NFL. So Josh Johnson makes this roster. Moving on to the running back position, I think you have a group here that can basically attack the National Football League and opposing defenses really from any angle. And I'm going to list these guys in order of age because I think that in the beginning, at least of the season, it's going to be just a committee. There's going to be a rotation of which back presents the best matchup for us, which back do we think can exploit this defense better for us. And then as the game goes on, who's got the hot hand, which running back is most effective. That's going to be the guy that continues to get the carries down the stretch. I think potentially, eventually, Ja'Cory Crosskey-Merritt, Bill, as we call him, the 7th-round rookie out of Arizona, could potentially become that RB1 and become, I don't know about bell cow, at least in his rookie season, but maybe the main back in this group. But I do think in the beginning, it's going to be kind of a rotational situation. So from oldest to youngest, Austin Eckler, Jeremy McNichols, Chris Rodriguez Jr., Ja'Cory Crosskey-Merritt, those are the 4 backs I have making this initial 53-man active Washington Commanders roster. Wide receivers, we're going to roll in here with 6. That's how we're going to roll through this. I think all offseason, we've basically talked about there being 5 guys that are pretty much locked in, right? Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Noah Brown, Luke McCaffrey, and Jalen Lane. Those 5 guys pretty much solidified. The 6th guy is really kind of where we came up with the competition. And I think that at the end of it all, the veteran Michael Gallup is going to be the guy that wins that battle for the 6th position. And from a depth chart spot, look, I'm not going to go through in this episode like Nick Allegretti, for example, coming up in the offensive line. I think, honestly, he's your backup at both guard positions, and I think he's your backup at center once Sam Cosmi is healthy enough to return. Until Sam Cosmi can return, Nick Allegretti is going to be your starting left guard, or starting right guard, I should say. But once Sam Cosmi is available, I think Nick Allegretti then becomes literally your backup at 3 offensive line positions. But we're not going to flesh that all out in this episode here. So offensive line, getting to that unit, Laramie Tunsil up front, left tackle, Brandon Coleman is your left guard, Tyler Biotish is your center. Again, Sam Cosmi, when he's healthy, is your right guard. Andrew Wiley is your right tackle to start the year. Although, again, very similar to what we saw last year, could very well see a rotation between between Andrew Wiley and the rookie Josh Connerly Jr. Eventually, Josh Connerly Jr. will take over that job full time. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if like week 3, the Raiders, you had that kind of pseudo bye, that long stretch between the Packers Thursday night game in week 2 and then the Raiders game in week 3. Give Josh Connerly a lot of reps, a lot of time to be just kind of the main one. Maybe you come out of that week that way, or maybe even into week 4, who knows? But I think eventually Josh Connerly Jr., just given his current projection and elevation in his play just since training camp started, I think he will solidify that job eventually. And then Andrew Wiley will join Nick Allegretti as a depth player on this offensive line. Chris Paul and George Fant round out the depth as well on this line. That's only 9 offensive linemen. Some teams keep 10 offensive linemen. Usually I try to kind of imagine 10 offensive linemen, but I think given the versatility of guys like Andrew Wiley, guys like Nick Allegretti, you kind of have like 10 or 11, depth or total players with depth when you talk about the positions that they can fill. Tight end position, we're keeping 3. This is where we get the 4th running back. Last year, the Washington Commanders really liked keeping 4 tight ends on their active roster. This year, we're keeping 3 tight ends, 4 running backs. The good thing about that is running backs benefit from the new special teams, the new kickoff rules just as much as tight ends do. And the 3 tight ends, Zach Ertz, John Bates, Ben Sinnott, no surprise there. So if you're looking for any early casualty to this decision-making process, it's Colson Yankoff. And Colson Yankoff, I think, certainly has potential. He'll be a name you hear later on in our practice squad conversation. But, kind of lacking in the blocking area, had a really big opportunity in that final preseason game to showcase that he was getting better in that area. Completely whiffed on, just completely missed it. And I think that's a big miss. I think he's like the 54th, 55th guy on this team. But I think right now he's not the 53rd guy on this team. So that's our offensive group. Again, 25 guys. I think when you look at the strength for this unit, they're explosive, clearly, especially once they get Terry McLaurin on the field. That's going to be a big thing for them. Multifaceted firepower from this team. And all this other stuff, versatility everywhere across the board. Weakness, I think the consistency on the interior offensive line, and some of that is just kind of by nature. Sam Cosmi obviously injured, not being able to be out there. Brandon Coleman missing some time here in training camp and during the preseason is going to jeopardize that. So I think it's just kind of a built-in situation for this offseason specifically because of what they were bringing in here. So the bottom line, I think it looks like a really good offense, borderline great, depending on how things look when Terry gets on the field and when Terry gets on the field, whenever that is. So a great offense can obviously win you games, but this team also has built a defense that's looking to contribute to the team's success in 2025, not just go on the ride along with it. That's coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Today's episode is brought to you by Rougiette Ready. Maybe you've even tried those other brands, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette Ready. Just like the Commanders are built to be ready and confident this season, Rougiette Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow for your biggest moments. Its 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes, with effects that can last up to 36 hours. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch, and it's completely online. Rougiette connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. So head to Rougiette.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL. And use the promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rougiette website for full safety information. Today's episode of Locked On Commanders is also brought to you in part by FanDuel. This coming Tuesday, Cutdown Day, August 26th, is also the official FanDuel Futures Day. It's a brand new holiday made by FanDuel, created by FanDuel, but done so for you, the football fan who lives for bold predictions and preseason hunches. I just laid out my prediction for an absolutely loaded Commanders offense, at least once we get Terry McLaurin back on the field. And this is the perfect time for you to do what I'm going to do. Put your money where your mouth is. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is going to give you deals on NFL season predictions. So take your flyer on the MVP race. I'm going to put money on Jaden Daniels there. Or you can go ahead and crown your champion in August. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. So if you've got confidence in the Commanders and Jaden Daniels, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year odds, all of that stuff, again, Tuesday, August 26th, one day only at FanDuel. Play your game. For the first time in a long time, the Commanders defense is not a unit that has to be carried, but a veteran-led group ready to try to be the backbone of a title contender. That's next on Locked On Commanders. But we've got an important request for all of Locked On listeners and viewers. We're putting together a survey to learn more about listeners and how to make your favorite podcast even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. So go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started today. Everyone who completes the survey is going to be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. So thanks for helping out ahead of time. Looking at this complete championship caliber unit, that's what the Washington Commanders are trying to build in this defense, right? So we've got 25 players on our initial 53-man roster projection for the offense. We've also got 25 players for the initial 53-man roster projection on defense. Again, not intentional, but it just kind of worked out that way. On the defensive line, we've got 10 guys. We're keeping 5 linebackers, we're keeping 5 corners, and we're keeping 5 safeties. So our 10 defensive linemen, maybe call them the power brokers, right? The team said they wanted to get stronger up front, get bigger up front. They certainly did so. I think when you look at who the starters are going to be on the defensive line, I think Dietrich Wise Jr. is going to be on one end. Dorrance Armstrong Jr. is going to be on the other end. Deron Payne and Javon Kinlaw are going to be your 2 interior linemen, but you're going to have a rotation. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, look, he's been injured a lot in this one. If there's a name that I'm not 100% certain on, he's certainly one of those guys. Eddie Goldman was brought in to be a really big presence on the defensive line. Again, he's another one that I'm not 100% sold on, but I do kind of just have the inkling that he's going to be kept on the roster. Jerzon Johnny Newton, obviously, and then Jalen Holmes is a guy who can play inside. He's a guy who can play outside. I think he ends up making this rotation as well. Von Miller is, we're going to talk about him kind of on that like second line, but we all know Von Miller is no backup. Von Miller is your special teams, or your pass rush specialist, your third down specialist, your closer, all those things. So, we got to put him on this list and talk about him in an order. It's going to come across like he's a backup, but Von Miller is nobody's backup. Jacob Martin, he's going to play D end. He's going to play outside linebacker. He's also kind of in that D line group as well. Then we get to those linebackers, the heartbeat of the defense, right? Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, the brains and the heart potentially, both those guys combined. But we're also going to keep Jordan McGee, Kane Madrano, the rookie out of UCLA, and we're going to keep special teams ace Nick Ballore. So if you look at this front unit here, the front 15, as we call it on this 53-man roster anyway, usually your front 7, right, when you're playing the actual game. The biggest name that probably gets left off here, Clelin Ferrell. I think that Clelin Ferrell, the veteran, he got a lot of playing time in this final preseason game of the year, and I don't think that was really a coincidence. I think some of that potentially the injury to Javonte Jean-Baptiste, but I think really that's where the rubber is going to kind of meet the road here. Do the Washington Commanders see the potential in Javonte Jean-Baptiste to keep him on the active roster, potentially could stash him on the practice squad and keep Clelin Ferrell, the veteran, or do they see enough potential in him to let Clelin Ferrell go? We will see. I know there's some love for Clelin on this roster. There's some love for him in this coaching staff. So I can't say I would be surprised, per se. But right now I lean towards the young potential over what Clelin Ferrell brings as a veteran. So we'll see where that actually shakes out. Cornerbacks, we've got 5 of them trying to create a no-fly zone in the DMV, right? Starters are going to be Marshawn Lattimore and Trey Amos, your second-round rookie out of Ole Miss. Mikey Sanders still is your starting nickel corner, not a strong safety. He's a nickel corner. Strong safety is somebody else. But we've also got some depth in Jonathan Jones and Noah Igbenogany. Again, both Jonathan Jones and Noah Igbenogany, they're your backup perimeter corners, but both those guys can also play in the slot as well. Marshawn Lattimore has played in the slot. I don't think Trey Amos really fits in the slot too well, but a lot of players that can play in the slot can also play outside. So again, we're not worried about specifying who's behind who specifically. Just those are your guys are going to be your depth defenders and defensive backs. Speaking of defensive backs, the Commanders are going to have 5 safeties here. Quan Martin and Will Harris are going to be your top 2. Jeremy Reeves, Percy Butler, Tyler Owens, your last 3 in there. Jeremy Reeves is your third safety in. Joey Jr., the defensive coordinator, has really said as much. So he's going to get that rotation. Percy Butler a lot of times gets some burn as more of a coverage safety, but he's a special teams whiz. Certainly brings some potential or brings some value there as well. So I think he sticks on the active roster. And when you look at this, Will Harris can play in the slot as well. So you have a lot of versatility here on the defensive side of the ball as well. Unit analysis, I think veteran leadership clearly has to be a strength of the Washington Commanders. We get flack all the time. Washington media members do when we go on the radio in other markets in Canada and all this stuff. People love to poke fun at the fact the Washington Commanders are the oldest roster in the National Football League right now. And yeah, it's a fact. But I think that what people are missing sometimes in this oldest roster in the NFL conversation is the amount of veteran leadership that brings. It's one thing to be old. It's another thing to be old in the right ways, right? And I think that's where this team has kind of nailed it, right? Dietrich Wise Jr. Is a proven champion. He comes from a great pedigree as far as his NFL career is concerned. Work ethic is off the charts. Consistently the first guy, if not one of the first guys out to the practice field every day. Bobby Wagner is an unquestioned leader. Frankie Louva really came into his own last year and is continuing to do so this year. Look, Marshawn Lattimore, I know he doesn't get a lot of credit for this kind of stuff, but like on the sideline, that preseason game, week 3 against the Baltimore Ravens there, like I saw him on the sideline really, pumping up his teammates and talking to the young corners that were out there. I mean, he was out there being a leader. Quan Martin is someone that Dan Quinn told us just last week has really come into his own as kind of a quiet leader, but, still kind of that leader. Mikey Sanders still, he's young, but he's also a leader. So, I mean, look, you can call him old, but don't discount the veteran experience and leadership that's being provided with that age. Football IQ is off the charts as well. I think if the weakness, when you look at the cornerback group, it's a little unproven, right? Mikey Sanders still moving back inside is unproven inside. Trey Amos obviously is unproven as a rookie. Noah Igbenogany, like he did pretty well as a slot last year and moving outside again this year primarily. So how is that going to go? He's still going to be worth about a flag a game. You can just pretty much bet on that. But I think if you have to pick a specific weakness right now, you'd probably look at that inexperience out there as that weakness. So stars can get you to January, of course, into mid-January, but the true mark of a championship roster is the quality of its depth. That's where we might have a problem. Coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. The NFL season is right around the corner and you can feel the buzz. Fantasy football season is here. Everyone's researching, drafting, and building their championship squads. If you haven't joined the league yet, now is the time, and it's all happening on Yahoo Fantasy. This year I'm playing fantasy football on Yahoo Fantasy. I've got my mock draft. I've got my fantasy draft tonight, Sunday night, right after we record this, as a matter of fact, and you should too. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran creating your millionth league, Yahoo Fantasy is loaded with fun ways to compete and brand new features that make the game even better. With season kickoff on September 4th, now is the time to start playing Yahoo Fantasy. Try the brand new Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine League mode, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated weekly until one team is left standing. The NFL season kicks off September 4th, so don't wait. Start your league now. Draft now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That's yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. Let's finalize this 53-man roster with a specialist and look at the strategic reserve of talent this team will carry on in its practice squad. We've got 25 offensive players, 25 defensive players, which means 3 specialists: kicker Matt Gay, punter Tress Way, long snapper Tyler Ott. No surprises there. I still say that they should have brought in competition for Matt Gay. It looks right now as if Matt is just he's out the job, and I will say that he did a lot better in the last couple of practices leading into the preseason finale. Did have that miss in the preseason finale. Obviously, you love to see him hit that. Did come back later, make a field goal. We'll see. I think that they brought him in for his leg strength. Clearly, his leg strength was on display, throughout training camp, throughout the preseason, but that accuracy not as great as you would like it to be. But as of right now, at least at the time of this recording, and of course things can change at this time of year, literally any second, news can come out. So this episode may not be completely intact for very long. But Matt Gay, Tress Way, Tyler Ott, again, elite specialists, at least, Tress Way, Tyler Ott's been really good. Matt Gay has had, Pro Bowl caliber seasons as well. Coverage unit consistency is going to be a question coming into the new season. I know that Larry Izzo, the special teams coordinator, is hard at work there. That leads us to the reserve, the practice squad. I've got 12 targets specifically. On offense, I'm looking at running back Demetric Felton, wide receiver Ja'Cory Brooks, tight end Colson Yankoff, Timothy McKay, the offensive lineman. I think those guys are bound for the practice squad unless they get poached up, snapped up by another team or another opportunity, and the player decides to leave. On defense, I think Sheldon Day, Carl Davis. If one of those guys, if I think it would be Sheldon Day, probably doesn't unseat Eddie Goldman already. I think both those guys potentially come back on the practice squad. Andre Jones Jr. is a guy that I really like. I really wanted to find a spot for him And I almost put him on there instead of Javonte Jean-Baptiste, but I just think this team likes Javonte. And if he's healthy to the point where they have confidence that he could be available for the NFL season, I think they might keep him over Andre. But I certainly want to see Andre come back. UCLA undrafted linebacker Ali Cahoe. If you missed it, did a short on him after the game. Put it up on social media. It's here on the YouTube page, on the Locked On Commanders YouTube page as well. So if you haven't gotten a chance to see that, you can check that out. But he had a pretty good game. I think that he's done a lot of good things for himself to stick around on the practice squad. Cornerback Carlin Viggers, also veteran cornerback Antonio Hamilton Sr., undrafted free agent safety Rob McDaniel, another one, and then TJ Magurinyanga is going to stick around. I mean, he's the international pathway player, doesn't count for any limits or anything like that. So I think that, you're going to see him around as well. So this completes our 53-man roster prediction. As I am with fantasy drafts, I'm expecting to get all of them correct, no misses. That is how we do this. That's how we go into it with confidence. I'm sure that nobody out there will point out my mistakes and my errors when the actual 53-man roster is finalized, which will happen Tuesday by 4 p.m. Eastern time. Practice squad will be finalized Wednesday morning, Tuesday night-ish, and then we will have a press conference with Dan Quinn and Adam Peters out in Ashburn on Wednesday, and then I'm told first practice of the season potentially could be coming on Thursday. So a lot coming down the pike here at Locked On Commanders. In the meantime, if you got questions or comments, all you got to do is text me directly by becoming a Locked On Commanders Insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnCommanders. NFL fantasy draft season is here. Like I said, I've got my fantasy draft coming up tonight, and I've been listening to Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast with Vinny and Michelle. I listen every day. You should listen every day to prep your fantasy drafts so you can take home your championships, just like I plan on taking home my league championship. Find Locked On Fantasy Football on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this podcast. To the everydayers, I see you every day. I appreciate you every day, and I thank you especially today for coming through. Until next time, stay safe, be kind to one another. We'll talk again real soon right here on Locked On Commanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.